Hello, everyone, to Monday Night Live with Alan and Greg and our guest, a very literary Kari. So, everyone, say hello to Kari.
Hello, Kari.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
It is a pleasure to have guests come on our show and have you come on as well.
Yeah. You know what? If I could go back to grad school again, you know what I would do? I would
What's that?
get a master's in library. I'd be a librarian. That's a cool job.
It is. It is. It's a special kind of feeling, I think, when you are able to get the right book in the right person's hands, especially now because it's really hard to get kids to read. I mean, it is a
Yeah.
struggle. And so it's definitely a fulfilling job. It's a job that I love. I love my students. And I love my coworkers. And I think that makes all the difference too when you have a job where you are around good people. And yeah, there's challenges obviously with every job, but I do feel pretty lucky.
I know. I think one of the challenges might be like with the homeless. If it's like Portland
Yeah.
up here, the homeless are welcome at the libraries. So when it
Yeah.
gets cold and that, they librarians have to deal with a lot.
Yeah, but Kari, you're a high school librarian, so I don't think you get the
Oh, that's
Yeah, I'm a
right.
high school librarian, but it's funny you mentioned that, Alan. I read I forget the name of it. I think it might be called The Library Book or something, but it's about the public library
that
fire
burned and
that burned in LA.
that's a
Um,
really good book.
Oh gosh, that book was such a love letter to public librarians, and
Yes.
it speaks to what Alan was talking about. It's really, a refuge for a lot of people, homeless people and people who, are in need of services. And I think it's so cool how those public librarians have really like tackled that challenge and just like run with it. Because in that book, they were just talking about, you know, basically these librarians like being the rallying point for these communities and really kind of getting things done. I think it was just so inspiring. So yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah, I'd like to read
Indeed.
that book. I'd love to read that.
There's
The
another
author was Susan
Orleans.
Orleans.
I
Yeah.
think it's Susan
Yeah.
Orleans. There is another book
Oh,
that I'm going to recommend about LA libraries. I read it for the BookTube Prize in Fiction last year. It made it to the final round, I think. It has a large section set in a public library in Los Angeles, and you can just tell that the author loved this library so much. There was a character that her main character kept meeting in the library, and this other character was just writing things in a notebook. And you could tell that it was the author writing this book. And she's just describing, of course, the fiction character isn't real, but it was just a beautiful description of the libraries in Los Angeles.
Very cool.
The title is just escaping me for the moment, but it was very
yeah. So
good.
libraries are a big refuge. Yeah, but people. I've always loved libraries. Since I was a kid, it would give me a. Yeah, I'm going to the library, Mom. And I'd go off for hours. Back when we were kids, remember, your parents didn't know what you did. I'm off smoking weed at the library. And I was a
Oh
weird kid. I
no.
was very precocious. I know.
So let's say hello to Bad is Rad. I know
So,
I've had her message up there for a bit. So hello, Bad.
Hello.
We have
hey,
Alexa,
man.
Kari. Hi, all. In the middle of making dinner. I will be back. And read by Fred. Hello, Fred. I know.
Hey, Fred.
Like you're talking, Kari, about how hard it is to get kids to read. I mean, it was a bit different when I was growing up because we didn't even have VCRs in our homes at the time. That was like
Oh,
a
you
brand
did?
new thing. So you'd be
Yeah.
able to watch movies and HBO and all that kind of stuff. Just
Yeah, I would go and I'd get the BBC stuff of Shakespeare from the library as a kid, like before junior high. Um, and I'd watch it with the text in hand. You know, I'd watch it like Sir Derek Jacobi in Hamlet and read along and from the library. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, the
I can picture
libraries
my local library when I was a kid right now.
they've done a really good job though of adapting, because I know I'm in a very rural area, and our public library, they get like all of the hot new things, on DVD, and they really do a lot of programming to bring some people in that probably would never, visit the library otherwise. Like they do some gaming programs and all sorts of things. So
That's cool.
it's pretty neat.
Yeah, libraries are really, really cool.
I know when
They have like graphic novel sections and YA and every time I go to the library in Portland, there's always little kids.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think reading's going away. It's not going to go away,
No.
but it's taking a hit.
Yeah.
well, they said these did not exist when I was growing up.
Yeah, mom couldn't call you.
Nope. You didn't have to. You had to make one phone call if you're going after school. Say, I'm staying after school, going out to a movie, be back in a couple hours, and that was it.
Like, what? Yeah.
So
I do miss some things about those times.
were you,
Oh,
do you
the
remember those
80s?
times, Kari? When
Well, I mean, I was born in 86, so
Okay.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. So, so yeah, I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college, and I actually didn't have a smartphone until 2020.
wow.
Yeah,
Did you,
I hung
did you
on.
did you ever have a pager? A
No, but
pager? Remember
I worked.
pagers?
Yes, I worked with some people who had pagers. I used to work for state parks here in Virginia, and when I first got on with state parks, I think they still had. A page. I think they were just making the switch over to cell phones at that time. So, kind of funny.
Like your mom or my mom would text me 911. Get home on my pager, my little pager.
Nice.
That is kind of reminiscent. So, borrowing it from Mark and Sean, they start off their lives saying, "What are you currently reading?" So Kari,
I came prepared.
You don't have to hold it up. You can just say whatever book you're reading, or you have it, show it.
Well, the first one I just started reading with Mark. Since you mentioned him, I'll talk about it. I had to take the book jacket off of this because this is a first edition Manchurian Candidate.
Ooh.
Whoa.
And so it's in really good condition by Richard Condon. But the book jacket, I did not want to risk. It's beautiful. I wish I'd brought it in here, but it's a beautiful cover. I just love it. And so we just started reading that. We read the first 2 chapters, and it's funny because I've seen both of the films. Have you two seen the Manchurian
Long time
Candidate
ago,
films?
I did.
I think I've seen the original.
Okay, that's definitely my favorite. I love Frank Sinatra. I'm a big Chairman of the Board fan, huge fan of him. So I love that one. But Mark actually has not seen them, and he went into this kind of blind because he started reading it and said, "This is not quite what I was expecting, but I'm liking it." So I had to kind of contain myself because I was like, "Oh, I don't want to say too much now that I know he doesn't know much about it." But the first 2 chapters are very good. It's a bit more racy than the films, obviously. So bit different there. And then I'm also reading The Perfumist of Paris by Alka Jashi. And this is the 3rd book in a series. This is the author I actually met
okay.
a couple weekends ago.
I saw some video where you went off this. So it's you that talked about that already. Okay.
Yeah. So, and this one's really good. She does a really good job of bringing Indian culture to life, and her characters are just so related. Like I feel like I really know these characters. So I'm really enjoying that, learning a good bit in that. And then I'm almost done with this book, The Remaking by Clay McLeod Chapman. And this is our read for the Black Hearts Book Club this month. So, and I don't know if you guys can see, but in that snake,
little film.
yeah, it's little film strips.
cool.
So it's like little
Film strip.
celluloid film strips. So what
Yeah,
this
I
book
love
is
it.
about, it's in the 1930s. Obviously, it's fiction, but in the 1930s, a mother and a daughter were burned as witches here in Virginia, and in the 50s, people tell that story around a campfire, and then in the 70s, they make a horror movie about it. In the 90s, they do a remake, and then there's a true crime podcast. So this is all related to that. Now, of course, it's fiction. That didn't happen, but really cool. Obviously, I like a Virginia connection, but this one is really good, and I'm almost done with it. So that one's. But that's really all
That
I've
does
been
sound good.
reading.
So what part of Virginia is it in?
It's set in a fictional town called Pilot's Creek, but I want to say it's probably, he keeps mentioning 60. So I'm thinking it's somewhere west of Richmond, though. So north of me for sure. So probably between me and you, Greg.
Yeah, well, I'm about 60 miles north of Richmond.
Okay, so yeah, I think it's somewhere in Northern Virginia, but to the west. So definitely rural. It's a very, very rural part.
You've already got me hooked on that one. Just burning of the witches up. You know, it's like, okay, I'll
you know, it's not.
Yeah, it sounds like a great concept for a novel. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it definitely drew me in, and it's kind of interesting. It's not. You know, it's a horror book, so it's not, great expectations or whatever. Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. And I didn't even notice this until I'd had the book for a while. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. So I really love the details on that. And actually, this is funny too. I didn't know this. I think I got this book off of Amazon, believe it or not. And it had the author's signature in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does that look nice? When was that?
Hell yeah.
I think it was from 2014.
I think it's either 2019. Yep.
2019. Okay.
So
and who's the author again?
It is Clay McLeod Chapman.
Clay McLeod Chapman. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, something fun.
Yeah, and before we go on to you, Alan, I want to catch up with because comments get a little out of hand. Fred says, hi, happy Monday. Fred, my favorite book from the library when I was a kid was an illustrated book on ancient history.
Nice.
I have not.
Yeah, I can imagine. Fred would like that.
He has some really cool folio libraries, like a trilogy of some sort of history book that used to be in the background of his videos. I just remember those. Yeah, Fred. Hi. Oh, he's just saying hi to people. I'm going to skip over the highs to other people. And Al. Hello, Al.
Hey, Al.
And Groovy Pop Tart is here. Hello.
I love that name.
Hey, Groovy.
She said her name.
Yeah, I commented on one of her videos today.
Oh, MJ. Hello, MJ.
Hey, MJ.
MJ saying,
good to see you.
Hit the like button. That would be nice. Okay, at the end of the comments, except for all the hellos. Okay, Alan, what have you been reading?
I'm reading the SOS. The same old. I'm still reading short stories. I'm reading Alice Munro stories and Faulkner.
Is there any Faulkner you have not read?
I got other books around too. And I got this book hanging around all the time. I mean, I had to cross-reference this last night talking to somebody. So I had to pull that out.
So, Alan, you may have missed it. Carrie's asking, what Faulkner haven't you read? There's a bunch of novels
What?
in his. You've read most of his novels.
Uh-oh. You're cutting out, Greg.
Am I?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, Alan, is
He's
there a Faulkner book you know you haven't read yet?
Did you hear him, Kari? I can't hear him.
I did. He said,
Oh, shoot.
can you hear me?
I can
Alan?
hear you just fine.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. We were
You might-
asking, is there any Faulkner that you haven't read?
Yeah, for me, yeah. Like Intruders in the Dust, I haven't read. I haven't read his poems. I haven't read like the earlier novels. Mosquitoes, I haven't read that.
Soldier's Pay?
Haven't read that.
Yeah. Well, from what I've heard, most people don't really hold much to a lot of his earlier books. The one that I've been very tempted to read is Sartoris, also known as Flags in the Dust.
Oh,
That's his first
yeah.
Yakuthafa book. Okay.
I have not read that either. I have to be honest. I haven't read that either, Sartoris. But
No, I have it.
yeah, that goes back to the beginning.
That's the
We should
very
read
first.
that.
Maybe in a couple of years for Faulkner in August, we should go back to the beginning.
I agree.
All right. So that's what you've been reading?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me go through real quick. Read by Fred. Kari, how is the running going? Are you getting ready for any running events later this year? Let's put that on the table because I know we want to talk about running.
Because Greg knows that I will go on and on and on.
No, I want to hear about it because, oh, Jim reads too slow. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
People saying hello.
Yeah, Jim hasn't
everyone.
put out a video in a while. What's up with that, Jim? You have to put out a video more often.
Groovy Pop-Tart, I haven't read any Faulkner yet. Hold on. Maybe next month we're going to do some short stories of Faulkner. And that might be it. We're going to do a Faulkner Fridays where we read some short, maybe every once a month, read a short story or two and talk about it. And Groovy Pop, I did in high school. That was about it. And people talking back to each other. Bad as Brad has not read any Faulkner yet. Well, Bad, a short story is it's a good place to start. Okay. So I've been reading I've been reading some Book 2 prize books for nonfiction. And I can't really talk about them too much because I don't think there's any judges in this room, but they might watch it. But Michael Romeo Talks Books has a project where he's reading 20th century books. And this month is kind of different. Everyone's picking an author to read and reading some book by that author. And we're doing the Arthur Haley. He used to be a very popular novelist. And you've probably heard of the movie Airport. And that's the novel that I'm reading. And it was written in 1968. And it's really rather amusing. Yep. It's just, I was commenting about how much more detailed those books were back then and how slower the pace was. I mean, he just took his time with the characters and with the pacing and setting it up. And so you get this very clear image of this airport just mired in a winter snowstorm. And of course, there's a bomb on a plane eventually, but I'm about 75% of the way through the book, and the bomb isn't even on the plane yet.
Oh, the old bomb on the plane, yeah.
Well, what you have to understand is that he's one of the first to actually talk about it. And it's really fun to go through all the security details from 1968 on how to get a bomb on a plane. Because you go like,
yeah, put it in your shoes.
Wouldn't work today. Wouldn't work today. talks about little old ladies on as stowaways on a plane. How do you has a little old lady sneak on a plane and not get caught?
Wow.
It's just highly amusing because his character, especially the little old lady, she's my favorite. I mean, she's only a minor character, but right now I'm just saying, you go,
We were
Grant.
talking.
You get on that plane. So that's a lot of fun.
Do you remember, Greg, when you could smoke on planes?
I remember smoking.
I remember when you could smoke on a plane. That's how old I am. You
I'm
could
also
smoke a
working-
butt on the plane, just fire it up. Yeah.
I'm working this with Micah Cummings and Anna Novella. They're working through the short story of Jorge Luis Borges, and
Yeah.
he has
Yeah,
some of my all-time favorite short stories. Some of them are just so magnificent. There's the Library of Babel. There's the Garden of Forking Paths. There's the Lottery of Babylon. It's not that one is not necessarily one of my favorites, but still a very good story. And I could highly recommend Borges. You can get lost in him because some of his stories are like book reviews. He's reviewing a book that was never written.
Oh.
And his books are totally fantastic. And you're going, man, I wish someone were smart enough to write that book for real.
Huh.
It's like one of the stories is it starts off like a detective novel. Two characters are on a train, and then you have your next chapter. And the next chapter is what happens when they get off the train. That's chapter. In chapter 3, he goes back and he rewrites chapter 2, but with different events. So you have a different outcome. And then you go back to the second chapter, right? The 4th chapter, 5th, and 6th, spreading it out. So you get all these different events that stream from the beginning of that short story. And it's just like, what was my comment? You don't need to smoke anything when you're reading Borges because mind-bending stories.
Wow. Yeah, I'm as you know, I'm ignorant about Borges, but yeah, I have to get that collected fiction and Una Codex Cantina. Yeah, he's a big Borges fan too.
Mm-hmm. Well, wait a second, Al. I'm looking at our notes, and I'm getting through. You might be a little surprised what's coming up. Mex Libris says hello. MJ Faulkner Friday. That's MJ's idea to do Faulkner Fridays. Mex Libris.
Yes, ma'am.
What would be a good Faulkner to start with? I think we've had this question before. There are 2 novels that come to mind. If you want to start with a novel, I think, Alan, we probably agree, As I Lay Dying or Light in August.
Yeah. Yes.
That's where you want to start. You can also start with his short stories. I think Barn Burning is a great short story to start with.
Yeah, it's a humorous one.
I don't know.
As if Barn Burning was humorous. But I don't know. I just get a kick out of Faulkner, you know, all the dumbass characters. Just makes me laugh. Makes me guffaw.
Bad to say, nice to meet you, Kari. Love your blue hoodie shirt. How's Monday going?
Yeah, we were talking about hoodies.
We got
Yeah.
that. I'm not wearing my hoodie today.
I mean, throw one on quickly, Greg. Come on.
I am wearing my redneck shirt.
How to fix stuff with
stuff.
Does it got duct tape on it, or
does it move? So
does it move? Is it plugged in? Is it plugged in?
Fix it with duct tape. Yes, no problem. Does it move? No. Should it? Yes. Silicone.
I want that shirt. I want that.
No problem. So this is sort of my redneck fix-it man shirt.
I love it. I love it.
Greg made a career out of people going, Greg, well, what's wrong with my computer? I can't do anything. And Greg comes over, plugs it in. There'll be $300.
Oh.
Alan, you're not too far from the truth. I have a neighbor.
Trade secret there, Greg.
And he said it was after a power outage. He says, I can't connect to the internet anymore. No, his printer wouldn't connect to the internet anymore. His Wi-Fi. I said, turn off all your computer equipment and restart it. He said, I did it. It doesn't work. So I went over to his house. I started turning everything off. He has a router in the garage. I said, turn off your router. He goes, why do you turn off your router? He says, turn off your router. He turned it off, started back up. His printer connected.
It's funny.
It is funny, but MJ, I'm picking up my Haley book from the library tomorrow. Haley sounds like great. Yep, and that's bad. Airport the comedy with Leslie Nielsen. No, this was a thriller. I think the movie's from the 70s, somewhere around there, because the book was 1960. It's about a bomb on a plane, and the bomb goes off, it doesn't destroy and they have to land the plane. But that's going to be just a small part of this book. It's all about the lives of the people on the plane and running the airport and running the maintenance. It's just a lot of fun, but very outdated. It feels very 1968 in this book.
Yeah, I guess it'd be cool to read. Like,
when was Manchurian Candidate written? Do you remember?
Manchurian Candidate was in 1959.
Does it feel like 19? I mean, it feels a lot different reading books from that era.
Well, it's definitely set in a certain time and place because it has to do with the Cold War. So, I mean, obviously there's all the players at work there, but if it was written today, it would still have that same feel. I think like there've been a couple references that I had to look up, but nothing too it doesn't seem too antiquated to me. But then again, I love the Cold War era, so it's kind of my jam.
I do too. I love like John le Carré, the books that I've read by him. You really get oh, by the way, this is Pip.
Such a cutie.
Well, I'm going to read some Dean Koontz in August, and he's kind of dated. If you read old Dean Koontz.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't read him in a while, Alan. But I'll have to pick him back up.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't read him in decades. Yeah, he's all right. Yeah. I'll read it for August.
Yeah.
I think Bad's going to send me a book or two.
Yeah,
well, she's got to pay you back. You sent her a pretty chock full box the other live.
Okay, chase your sister. His sister came downstairs and he had to chase her away. Yeah, I'm going to be reading some Dean Koontz in May, I think. I have this book called Phantoms. I can't remember. It was written late 70s, maybe early 80s, somewhere around there.
Yeah, my favorite Koontz book is Dragon Tears.
Yeah. Well, Alan,
but he's got a formula. Koontz does. It's like a couple, a man and woman. They might be police, they might be detectives, but they go on a big, or they try to save the world from monsters or weird stuff. Koontz is a trip.
It is, but this one, in the early 80s, another book was published called The Crawling Dark by Pauline Dunn. It was, I don't know if you remember, it was published by Zebra, which was the low-end publisher for horror books. And it turned out...
Hey, I'm going to leave and come back. I'm having a hard time hearing. I'm going to leave and come back.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all garbled. Hang on.
You're having no problem, Kari?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. No comments otherwise, so...
Yeah, okay. It's not.
All right. So I was mentioning that there's a book by the sister writing team, Pauline Dunn. One of the sisters was not really writing her sections of the book. She was going to other books and copying passages out of them and submitting it as her own writing.
Oh my gosh.
And she eventually got someone picked it up and said, this passage sounds really familiar.
Oh my gosh.
So it's, of course, out of print now because Dean Koontz sued them and saying, that's plagiarism. But I have an old paperback copy, and I'm going to read those 2 books in May, I think. Just because I really want to see how noticeable it is that when you read Koontz book and then read someone else's, like, oh, there's that passage. So that might be a little interesting experience. I'm too bad Alan isn't here. His buddy Una is Faulkner good. I heard he was hard to read. Oh, there he is.
Well, I mean, the first Faulkner book I ever read was The Sound and the Fury, and I came back for more, so.
I still think that's either his best book or his second best book.
Yeah.
So Alan, you just came back in time. We have a message from the Codex Cantina. Is Faulkner good? I heard he was hard to read. You just missed it.
Can you say again? I didn't hear you. I didn't see that Una comment.
Is Faulkner good? I heard he was hard to read. He's just being a little facetious.
Facetious, but yeah, I mean, correct. Faulkner's got a, reputation being hard to read. Faulkner and August, not hard to read.
We got a question from Fred. Kari, outside of crime and political themed books, what other genres do you enjoy reading?
Well, I used to read way more nonfiction than I read now. I mean, I used to read almost exclusively nonfiction. A lot of history stuff. I went through a phase where I read a ton of historical fiction. But I feel like now my reading tastes are just kind of all over the place. Like I just like to dabble in everything. And I used to be the type of reader who had to finish a book before I started another book. I don't know. It was just a compulsion. I felt like I had to finish it before I could start something else. But now I like to read different things at the same time. I feel like it's a little less likely that I'll get them confused if I read, 3 different genres rather than reading, 2 historical fiction books or whatever.
I'm a lot the same. I mean, I'm always listening to an audiobook. So I always have an audiobook going. I always have a book that I'm reading. And usually,
what else I've been reading? Go ahead.
That usually works fine because I try to make sure, like I said, I'm not reading 2 books that are similar genres.
Right.
So it's very different. And now I'm reading, like you said, a collection of short stories, which it works okay because you start off your day, you read a short story or pick it up and read a short story. And where it gets a little more complicated is when we're doing like really long buddy reads, like we did with William Gaddis of the Recognition, which is 940-page book. And so you're reading, 20, 30 pages of that in the morning, then reading something else. And it gets a little confusing that you're reading too much at the same time. And I think that's really about the limit. 2 books, 1 audiobook and short stories is about as much as my brain can take at one time.
I'm reading a cool poetry collection, and George Sanders had a blurb on this. It's called the Blackout Poets or Poems, and they're all. I've just started it. There's pictures in here, but they're like that. The poems are like that.
I've done that with my kids at school.
And
my
and then there's there's a section on it with a bunch of like photography. I mean, it seems to me that you can make a book out of anything these days. I mean, I find this interesting, and it's a great concept, and I haven't really read it yet. Really intrigued by it. Blackout poems,
That's cool.
Yeah, I found that in the library. It was like it just came out, so picked it up.
Comments again. There are chunks. I'm going after it. Okay, no, that's airplane, I believe. You're right. I'm reading airport. Leslie is airplane. That's right.
I wanted to mention, like, Greg is like Ollie, Criminale. He likes to read old, like, pulp stuff. And it's, I'm going to have to read that for, like, August. Go back and read, like, some 70s books when they didn't have cell phones or,
Well, a
go back
lot
to that.
of
I would
those
like that.
old books are now literature. I know, Kari, you just recently read The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett.
Yes.
And originally written as a pulp mystery, but now that's considered literature. And I actually think it definitely deserves to be held up in a literature class and university. It can hold up with a lot of books from its era. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I'm not very judgmental of books or snooty about books, but yeah, I agree. I feel like that is one in that genre that could be discussed in a literature class. I mean, I don't think every pulpy book doesn't deserve that attention, but again, I'm not being judgmental. Like, read for fun, read what you want to read. I just like for people to read. But yeah, definitely there's some good stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know the Maltese Faulkner a wee bit.
You do?
I'm a big Humphrey Bogart fan. I didn't have time to get my posters out, or you Kari today, but so the Maltese Falcon is Sam Spade.
Yes. Who
as
I like
opposed
better,
to
Philip
Marlowe.
I like Sam Spade better. What about you, Alan?
Yeah, he's more cool.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah,
he's not going to play the sap. Marlowe's a bit of a sap.
You think so? But the thing is, you have more Philip Marlowe than you only have one Sam Spade.
Yeah.
So he never got to develop him as
that
a
is
character.
true. That is true.
So say hello to the Grim Reader. I know you've been along for a while, but we do get backed up on the comments here. Oh, she's reading Borges too.
Oh, good.
Una said, "Don't forget Talon." Yes, that was another. That's when I made my first comment that you don't need to smoke anything when reading Borges. He gives you everything you need.
That's a title of a story?
What?
Is that a Borges story title that Una just put up?
He gave part of the title. I'm not going to go back and read the whole title, but it's about a world where it's a fictional world, but when you write a nonfiction book, it's considered incomplete if you don't give the opposing views in the book.
Wow.
You have to go read it yourself. It's bad at saying, unfortunately, smoke gives me a headache. That's why I don't smoke. I get migraines from smells, airplane smoke. Nope. I am so glad just for not having to smell that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's saying, just started that one. Codex. Alan, here's Fred. Have you started Murder on the Orient Express yet?
He always has all the books ready.
But I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to do audio with this. I'm going to do the audio too.
Okay, I'm going to go through the comments real quick because I want to ask Kari because she's a JFK expert. So I want to get in some. I want to get some of those books in. Al, we must remember that it's the mind's eye that is our greatest storyteller. Once imagined story is written, it will never compare to our imagination. Saying hello to MJ. How's your Easter? Just going through as I lay dying. Yep, groovy. That's good. It's a good place to start. Barn burn. No. As someone who has a horse, barn on his I don't like that at all. Well, Fred, you may not like barn burn. I mean, the people back then did not like barn burning either, but it is a good story. Yeah, barn burning is also the idea of going to town like a circus. Fred has a great T-shirt. Barn burner noun, very exacting dramatic event. Groovy. I've seen both Manchurian Candidates movies. Kari, here's bad. Kari, what is the absolute favorite weather to read from your favorite beverage? Mine is winter and white chocolate coffee.
Oh my goodness, that sounds absolutely delicious. Yeah, I'd definitely say winter because I like to, curl up in a bunch of blankets and all my cozies. And I guess I'll say, well, right now I'm a huge coffee drinker. Normally I'm like all about the coffee. But right now I've been getting into the tea a good bit. And I'm really liking a sweet Himalayan blend. It's really good.
Cool. Grim was saying,
I like all seasons, and I read while drinking Guinness.
There you go.
Hi. Bad. I'm getting a box of goodies from Alan. Tie-dye shirts from Dean Koontz. Homie. Oh, you might be getting something good.
Lucky me.
Lucky Alan. Al, if it were Pulp Fiction stuffs, I would choose Robert E. Howard.
Oh, yeah.
Sure about the modern mindless stuff. Yeah, Robert E. Howard, I don't get into him like Michael K. Vaughan, but he's okay.
Like Vaughan, yeah.
Groovy's seen the film of Koontz. Here's Bad saying she wants me to do that project on Koontz and Pauline Dunn. Sound of the Fury is what MJ. Okay, that's Chinese or Japanese.
I want to chime in about As I Lay Dying briefly. That is a funny book to me, except for there's a horrendous scene about the doctor and the young woman, and Faulkner packed so much into that.
Well, you know something?
And
there's a comment right here from Alexis. As I Lay Dying was my first Faulkner book, and I thought it was hilariously funny.
Yeah, but not. I mean, the doctor, am I going to spoil if I say it? Probably.
Yeah, so maybe just hold back.
Yeah, man. It's horrendous. And then the young kid in there with his mother. I mean, there's one chapter that says, what is it, Greg? My mother is a fish.
My mother is a fish.
That's a chapter. Just
so
when you have a character who's already dead, virgin, right? I'm spoiling it. So read As I Lay Dying.
Well, Groovy Pop Tart is. So, Kari, what did you think of Hacienda?
Oh, that book actually was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I mean, I guess because it was so hyped up. It was kind of billed as the maybe the Latin American version of Rebecca, something to that effect.
Okay.
And it was very beautifully written. Like, I enjoyed that part of the book, but it wasn't scary to me. Like, I was expecting a bit more of a horror element to it, or a bit more suspense there, and there was an interesting romance piece to it, but it was kind of that part was kind of awkward for a lot of people, because it involved a priest. It was a little bit off for me. It wasn't terrible. I don't give star ratings for books, but I mean, if I gave that one a star rating, I'd say a 3 out of 5. So it was good. I enjoyed it, but it was just kind of one of those books for me that I'd seen it everywhere and everyone was talking about it. And then when I read it, I was just kind of like, you know,
Cool.
okay, it was good.
Remember the author?
You know? Oh gosh, I cannot remember the author.
All right. That's all right.
I want to say it was her first, Isabel Cañas. Yeah, this is her debut novel.
Okay,
So, I mean, it had a Gothic feel to it, and it was set right after the War for Mexican Independence. So there was a kind of a cool historic backstory there. But
all right. Getting through the comments again. Charlie Chan was fun. Not sure if it's politically correct today. Yeah, I've got to read. I'll read Charlie Chan someday, but I think we're doing Fu Manchu.
That's the Fu Manchu.
No, Charlie
Yeah,
Chan is
Jinx.
different from Fu Manchu.
Jinx. Yeah, I like me some Fu Manchu.
Al, what people's reading rituals is a great question. Here's Jem reads too slow. Can you tell me more about Faulkner Friday? Faulkner Friday is an idea that we have, is that once a month we're going to have a live stream where we talk about Faulkner, probably short stories, maybe something else. We want to have at least one guest on the show with us, talk about whatever Faulkner we're talking about. It's still in the works, but we'll get there. Alan, when I was a teenager, I would read it and probably Clueless. Yeah, William's Library is here. Hello, William. And
hey, William.
They said, I want to get to the comments so we can ask Kari about JFK. As I lay dying, sounds really interesting. Southern Gothic, yes. Southern Gothics is beautiful. Bought a book. Continue with writing my book. Okay.
I'm going to promote Faulkner in August. If you want a ghost story in a Southern Gothic book, join us for Faulkner in August this season when we read
Absalom.
Yeah.
Okay, Kari. Since you're an expert on JFK, we want to pick your mind on the best books to read about JFK. Now, I've read a few over my time. I'm just going to mention the ones that I can remember. I have read Case Closed by Gerald Posner.
Yep.
There was a very large section in a book, Robert Carroll, who actually does a biography of LBJ. So he has like 100 or 200 pages in one of his 4 volumes about the JFK assassination. And just to throw fiction out there, I'll throw out, I read Stephen King's 11/22/63, which I will say is mostly a good book. He just got really wonky on these time travel rules at the end. I'm going, just have him travel in time. Just don't make up these dumb rules.
Spoiler alert.
I'm not making up any rule, but those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
I can just think of the JFK movie.
What about you, Al?
And like just the JFK movie. I mean, I'm fascinated by the conspiracy in that, and I don't believe for a minute in the single gun theory. I don't believe that. I'm not going to throw anybody under the
Yeah,
bus, people who do, but I just can't believe that.
yeah. And Alan, I do recommend the book that the film JFK is primarily based on, which is Crossfire
Jim
by
Gears.
Jim Mars, and
Oh, okay.
then also Jim Garrison, and Crossfire, which is Jim Mars's book, relies heavily on Jim Garrison's investigation. But Crossfire, the plot that killed Kennedy by Jim Mars is, don't get me wrong, it's everything. You're getting every possible eyewitness, every kook, you're getting everything in there. Okay, so it's not vetted. Okay, I'm not gonna tell you that it's like the definitive answer on who killed Kennedy, but I do think it gives a lot of people some kind of context around what they see in the film JFK and kind of where those things came from. So I do recommend that book, but
I
I
would
would
like to read
say
it.
for, yeah, and it's fairly long, but it's very readable. So that's Crossfire, the plot that killed Kennedy. The other one that I would recommend is JFK Has Been Shot, and this is by Charles Crenshaw, who was one of the surgeons at Parkland Hospital who actually saw Kennedy and tried to, do what they could to save his life. I feel like that book, it just confirms what a lot of people saw who were there as far as the wounds and what that looked like. And it, this person really has nothing to gain. He has everything to lose in my mind by speaking out about what he saw professionally, as far as that goes. So I feel like that's a good one. And the one that I keep going back to, and I'm trying to find it so I can find the name of it for you guys. There is, here we go. There's one book called JFK and the Unspeakable: Why He Died and Why It Matters. That's an excellent book because he doesn't really focus on so much of the who and the what in Dealey Plaza. He focuses a lot on the backstory and what's going on in international politics, what's going on kind of behind the scenes that could possibly put Kennedy in this sort of position. And there's another book by a gentleman called Colonel Fletcher Prouty, and I'm trying to find the name of that book. I don't have it handy. The name of that book is JFK, the CIA, Vietnam, and the Plot to Assassinate John F. Kennedy. And that is by L. Fletcher Prouty. That one was really interesting to me because Colonel Prouty was involved in a lot of the logistics of putting U.S. military equipment and personnel into Vietnam before it was Vietnam. I mean, we're talking right after the French start, evacuating and putting some of the resources that we had in Korea, just not even bringing them back here, just sticking them right from Korea down into Vietnam. And, before the American public even knew, what Indochina was or what, Vietnam was, these things were going on behind the scenes. And he puts a lot of that in context. And he was someone who was still in the military and still had a bird's eye view of what was going on when Kennedy was assassinated. And I like how he handles the assassination, because I think some people get way too bogged down in these Kennedy books with the specifics of Dealey Plaza. And I think you can go mad trying to figure out what actually happened there, because the evidence has been destroyed. I mean, when you look at the pictures right after the assassination, where you have the Secret Service agents outside of Parkland Hospital with, buckets of water, and they're cleaning up the crime scene. Now, I don't necessarily think there was anything nefarious going on there. I don't necessarily think that these Secret Service agents are like covering up like what happened. I think they just, were in a tragic situation. They were in the public. They were right there with Miss Kennedy. They were wanted to, clean up the gruesome scene. But unfortunately, I feel like, it's a lot of things like that have made it impossible for people to put this case to rest, because we do not have that evidence. And it's the same thing with the autopsy. You look at the list of names that were in the autopsy room. It is astounding. I mean, we're talking about dozens of people in an autopsy. And we're talking about people from various, agencies within the government telling the doctors not to touch certain things, not to look into certain things. And so we just don't have a lot of the information that I think could put some of the conspiracy theories to rest, or confirm something for us about the scene. We're looking at people doing an autopsy for the President of the United States, and they haven't done an autopsy for anyone that died of these sorts of gunshot wounds. I mean, quite honestly, it would have been better for the president to have been, kept in Dallas, because the coroners there, they had, it's Dallas in the 60s. Yeah. They had plenty of experience with gunshot wounds and things like that. So I feel like we would have gotten a better look at what really happened. And unfortunately, people ask me all the time, it's like, will we ever know exactly what happened? And I don't know that we will, but I tend to agree with Alan. I just can't believe that the government line and the official story is all there is to it. And, I'd like to remind people that the last official word of the U.S. government was from the House Select Committees on Assassinations. And what they concluded is that Kennedy was assassinated as a result of a probable conspiracy. So when people say conspiracy, and they get like, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory, and they kind of dismiss it. I really like to remind people of that, because conspiracy doesn't mean necessarily, I think, aliens are going to drop down and, it's invasion of the body snatchers, or, Kennedy was keeping some secret alien files. That's not what we're talking about here.
That's nuts. Yeah.
When you say the word conspiracy, I think of the legal definition of conspiracy, which is that two or more people were involved in the planning or commission of a crime. And that's really what we're talking about here.
Hell yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a little...
No, that was great.
A little serious there.
Thank you. I was writing down all the books, because
I'm just like, just counter Kari, like the three books that I mentioned. Case Closed, obviously, comes out and says it's Oswald.
Yes.
When I read the biography of LBJ, Caro again comes, it's Oswald. And I'm not saying Stephen King is really a good source, because he's a novelist.
But he agrees. Yeah, he agrees with the...
It was Oswald.
Yeah.
There is a
Yeah.
book
I
that I
can't
want to
believe
read.
that.
It was recommended by Steve Donahue called Revisiting History by, he's the guy who did the Manson trials.
Reclaiming
the
History, Vincent
Oh,
Bugliosi.
okay.
Boogly, yes. And I look at that, and it's 4,000 pages with notes. And I'm going,
Yeah.
okay, Steve Donahue can do a 4,000 page book. I don't know if I can do a 4,000 page. But apparently, again, there is, his opinion was it was Oswald.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, like you were talking about, there is no definitive evidence. And what I guess a lot of people saying is, without evidence that you can prove towards a conspiracy, you can't say it was a conspiracy. I mean, like a larger conspiracy, because some of these just get really wild. And
I know.
And
And I'm about to say the F word. It gets
don't,
so,
no,
you know, but I won't. But it's messed up.
I'm just
In
going,
my mind,
like you said,
it's really messed up.
hey, Kari, so from what I was listening to you, if I wanted to read the other side, the one book you recommend is like Crossfire. If you had to pick one book,
you know, if I had to pick one, I think I would pick the Prouty book. I think I would pick the Prouty book just because he was in the government at the time. Yes,
he's a colonel.
And and I feel like with Crossfire, there's so much going on, and I feel like some of it is just nonsense. You know, some of it is nonsense. I think there's a few things in Crossfire that are you know, legit, that are genuine, you know, connections and concerns and things to look out for. And then there's other stuff in there that's not. So I if you're only going to read one book, I would rather you not have to try to figure that out. You know, I feel like that's the sort of book that's very entertaining to read for sure. And it can give you kind of a general overview of some of the things that you hear in the JFK assassination community. But if you want, you know, a legit view of what was going on at that time, I would pick that one. And, you know, here's another thought. And it, you know, I'm just thinking about this as a historian. Okay. We're talking about the Cold War. Okay. We're talking about the era where we have Bay of Pigs invasion, we've got the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you're telling me that this ex-Marine is able to go to the Soviet Union, make a spectacle of himself while he's there, okay? And we just let him back in the country, and the State Department loans him the money to come back. This is when the Gary Powers incident had also happened, okay? So keep that in mind too. So that has happened. Oswald is now in the Soviet Union. We've got the capture of Gary Powers, and our government is just going to let him come back in, loan him the money to do it with his Soviet wife, come back in, not really keep tabs on him, not, you know, I mean, there's a few confirmed, you know, pieces of evidence that show us the FBI had met with him a couple times. You know, I just find that unbelievable. I just find it unbelievable to me that, you know, this man who we're supposed to believe he's a loser, basically, and that he, you know, really has no means of taking care of himself, right? We're supposed to believe that he had the money to then get himself to the Soviet Union, come back here, you know, and it just, there's too many things for it to be a coincidence. There's just too many people that he came in contact with. You know, he was the most well-known Marxist of the day. You know, if you look at all of the video and audio footage that we have of Lee Harvey Oswald, where he's espousing these Marxist and communist beliefs while he was in New Orleans, particularly, you know, he was out on the street, he was making contact. At one point, he's making contact with some anti-Castro Cubans, and he's telling them he's, you know, going to help them. And then not days later, you know, he's out on the street, like Alan said, he's handing out leaflets for Fair Play for Cuba Committee, which is a pro-Castro committee. And he does this in a neighborhood where he knows he's going to see the anti-Castro Cubans. So then we have this scuffle on the street. He's arrested. Who's the first person he calls? He calls an FBI agent. Now, why would you do that? Why would you, if you were arrested, why is that the first call you make? That's just really odd to me. And, you know, here's another thing to think about. And, you know, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not saying that, you know, there is a way to definitively say that it was this conspiracy or that conspiracy. But, you know, he's got way too many connections with organizations that appear to be kind of these shell organizations. And one thing that came out of the House Select Committee on Assassinations was also the stuff from the Church Committee, right? And the Church Committee, you know, the things that came out with that were the CIA operations of disinformation and involvement in a lot of these, you know, organizations that were created for that purpose and were created to kind of smoke out communists in the country. And knowing that, I think it was a combination of things, but I think knowing all of those things were happening and then seeing Oswald, I think that the House Select Committee just could not separate the two. I mean, you would kind of have to be blind to say that, you know, Oswald is completely isolated from all of these things that admittedly were going on. And that's the thing too. It's like, you know, that's just the stuff we know about. You know, we know about that stuff. Imagine what we don't know about. And
well,
you know,
well,
it was like
there's one thing I've always wondered is if there were a conspiracy, wouldn't it have leaked by now? I mean,
right?
We're seeing in our government right now is like we can't hold our secrets worth a crap. Sorry,
hell no.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Is that if there were more than two people involved, it would have leaked by now. Someone would have told one person, or the documentation would have been stolen, or whatever. It just, I mean, and that's one of the ideas. I say it's just impossible to keep this quiet forever, and that I think when you were talking about Oswald, I think people said this guy's just nutsy Fagin. Yeah, I mean, he's just like if you were involved in a conspiracy, you would not want him in your plot,
right?
It's like I don't want him. He's crazy.
That's why that the argument could be made. That's why he's just the fall guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. You know, you put this guy out there and you tell him, we want you to go hand out these flyers or whatever. You know, he served a purpose.
Patsy.
You know, and you know, I find that an interesting choice of words too. Alan, you pointed out patsy. You know, he said, I'm just a patsy. That's a very specific word choice. You know, when you think about that, he's not saying I didn't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. He's saying I'm just a patsy.
Yeah.
You think
I don't use that word too often.
No. You know, most average people who would have been accused of something like that, that's not the first thing you come up. And Alexis, you know, never bought the explanation of the magic bullet. You know, Commission Exhibit 399, that bullet, that it's not pristine. I will hear conspiracy theorists tell you it's a pristine bullet. No, it is not pristine. It is warped. But the thing about that bullet is no one could explain where that bullet came from. The chain of custody on that bullet was done because it was found on a
Wow.
stretcher out in a hallway.
Wow.
And they said it was from Governor Connolly's stretcher. But the thing about that is that the bullet that was found is not missing enough pieces to be the bullet that shot Governor Connolly, because Governor Connolly still had pieces of shrapnel in his body. Okay, so it could not be that bullet. So you've got that bullet, you've got the head wound on JFK, and you would assume that the bullet that caused that is not in that good of condition, like Commission Exhibit 399. You've got the throat wound, you've got the back wound. Now, if you listen to some of the doctors at Parkland, they will tell you that it didn't appear that those wounds were actually connected, because the wound in the back, they could put their finger in, but it would not go all the way. It only went in maybe a couple of inches. It was kind of a shallow wound. So there you have 4 shots. Okay. You've also got the first shot that doesn't hit anybody, right? It misses. It hits on the pavement. People thought it was fireworks. You also have the gentleman, James Tague. People forget about him. He's a bystander who gets hit by a shrapnel that hits the curb. So at some point, a bullet hit the curb. Shrapnel, yep, caught him on the cheek, and
wow.
He was wounded there.
That.
So, yeah. So when you look at all of these things, it's like, and I have a Carcano. I have the same model Carcano that Lee Harvey Oswald has, and it's not the worst gun. Okay, it's not like, some people will tell you, a lot of conspiracy theorists will tell you that it's like a junk gun, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily. I know a guy who doesn't live very far from here. He uses that gun for hunting. That's his hunting rifle. It's not the best, okay? It's very, very rare for people to have this gun just for.
I'd rather have a 30-06 myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the best, but at the time, it was a serviceable weapon. And so I don't have an issue with that, but I do have an issue with the fact that the FBI, when they tested Oswald's gun, they had to put 2 or 3 metal shims under the scope to even make it fireable, to even make it testable. Okay, so you're telling me that they have to put metal shims under the scope just to make it to where they can even perform any sort of valid testing on it. And then they say, yeah, it can be done. We did 3 shots in 6 seconds. Okay, because it is a bolt action. Okay, so it's not, if you've shot a bolt action, it's not the quickest process. Okay, so
at all.
Something else to think about is that you're telling me Oswald gets more accurate. He gets more accurate as the president is driving away from him. Okay, think about that for a second. He doesn't shoot the president when the president's motorcade is coming right directly to the Texas School Book Depository. Okay, he waits until they make that dogleg turn on Elm Street off of Main. He's going down. The first shot misses, right? We know that. That's fact. We know that. But then he gets more accurate. That last shot is the headshot, right? So he gets more accurate. I just find that weird. And then, when you look at the Zapruder film, the government, they printed the photography from the Zapruder film in Life magazine, right? I'm sure you guys have seen that. I have a couple copies of it. It's very famous. They printed, of course, because they couldn't release the video footage. But what a lot of people don't realize is they actually transposed a couple of the slides. Okay, so when you look at the president in the motorcade, okay, when he's the headshot, I'm sure you've seen JFK, right? He goes back and to the left. Okay, so what they did with those 2 slides is the government printed this slide first to where he's back, and then this slide second to where he's up front. So it makes it look like he is shot from the rear. Okay. Now, when it all came out, when the Zapruder film was eventually released and people started looking at the video footage, they realized it didn't match, right? Something was wrong here. And so the FBI said it was a printing error. Okay. Printing error. This is the assassination of the president. And I'm not saying it's not possible. Sure, we're human, errors happen. That has to be one of two things. The first thing is that they know there's some conspiracy afoot. The second thing is they're trying to cover up the fact that they were incompetent, which of course that happens, right? The fact that the president was even assassinated, the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was running around with his antics, when he clearly should have been under surveillance. I mean, I think it could be either of those things, neither of which is good, right? But could be either.
I just hate the fact that
I'm
he's
sorry.
gone.
I feel like
No, I love it. I'm a bleeding heart Kennedy liberal myself. Okay, I don't want to get into politics, but I always wonder if he would have lived, he would have been the greatest president. He that's what I think about. And I kind of get triggered by thinking about all the cover-ups and BS. I think America would have been a lot better with John Kennedy in it. That's what I have to say.
Okay, well, let's move on to another. We've talked about that for a while, and I think the Prouty. I will check that out because I think it's a good idea to read both sides of the argument, as Borges said.
Be right back.
So
Yeah.
why don't we talk about running? We were talking a little bit about running before. You were also a coach. Kari, are you frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, what? No. Okay, you look like you're frozen for a second. Because I know you talk about
A happier topic.
I'm sorry, it's like you're like a little frozen right now.
Do you want to?
Okay, Alan, Kari seems to be frozen a bit.
Yeah, she's froze.
Yeah.
Let me she's back. Now I'm froze.
No, you're not frozen yet.
Hi, Kari. She's froze again. Shoot.
Well, she's mentioning that her internet connectivity can be a little wonky where she is.
Oh, she's back.
Is she?
Are you back, Kari? Wiggle around. Yeah, she's back.
I'm not hearing her voice though. I'm hearing your voice.
Boy, this is kind of messed up because I hear Kari, right? Oh man, she froze again. What's up with this wonky StreamYard video?
There are a couple elements here. There's of course I host. She has to connect, and it could be you're fine, but she does not appear fine right now.
I can hear you guys now. It was cutting in and out. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Good.
See, now you're back to normal.
Okay.
I do everything on my phone. I don't have internet here. I'm on T-Mobile.
Yeah,
I'm doing
mine is through
T-Mobile.
my phone too. Yeah, mine is through my phone, through my hotspot. So.
Okay, so I'm going to skip over a lot of the comments that were done during the JFK just because we'd be here all night. I am sorry if someone made an intelligent comment, and I'm
Yeah, repeat
skipping
your
over
comment for Kari, and we'll address it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot. I mean, you have Kari on the show. It's going to be, we're going to go deep dive.
Yeah, well,
But I enjoy it.
I did. I food for thought. So now we have Joseph Francis Burton says, yes, running. Please talk about my real passion.
All right, Kari. Talk about some running now.
Okay. Okay, guys. So I just finished a couple weeks ago. I did an ultra marathon actually, and that was pretty cool. It was a 12-hour ultra marathon, and I ended up doing the 50K. So I did 31 miles, and it was
Wow.
absolutely brutal.
Wow.
Wow, that is just
Yeah, I can tell you anything over marathon distance, it's like no man's land. I mean, it's just absolutely painful. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was in so much pain. And admittedly I did not prepare for this race like I normally would. I've been kind of busy, and I've been, coaching some clients of mine, and I've been putting more emphasis into their workouts and their training than my own. So I really hadn't run a ton leading up to that race, so it was pretty cool. But it was very hilly. It was on about a 4-mile loop, and you were either going up 30 feet or down 30 feet pretty much the entire time. I can think of maybe one like half-mile stretch that was straight. So my hamstrings were on fire. And my back was killing me, and I had forgotten my ibuprofen, and it was whatever.
Oh,
but
Lord.
It rained for the first 2 hours, so that was fun.
God.
But I brought extra socks, so I did change my socks and my shoes.
31.
And yeah, I didn't get any blisters until about mile 28, and it was the weirdest sensation, guys, because I mean, I've had blisters before. Normally you just, when you stop, you're like, oh, I know I have blisters. I can just feel that they're there. Well, this time I actually felt the skin come out, and I felt the liquid like fill up the blisters. It was the weirdest sensation.
Hi, Brian. It's like hi to Brian from Bookish.
Oh, my partner's here. Hey, Brian.
So
Kari's just talking about her blisters. We ain't talking about much. Just blisters and popping blisters and.
No, don't pop them. I try not to pop them. I used to pop them, but now I've learned my lesson on that.
I hear you. I don't pop mine either.
When I was in my early 50s, I did a 5K. I tried.
We can do it again, Greg.
I probably can, but you load it on your phone, and they have these apps. They say walk 3 minutes, jog 5, and they build you up to the 5K, and I said I completed my 5K mostly at a pace faster than walking. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
But it's
it's something that you can get hooked on it, Greg. You can get hooked on it.
Murakami wrote a whole book on running. Did you ever read that one?
I've read it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's fun because 2 words, black toenails. Yeah, I've lost a ton of I shouldn't say a ton. I've lost several toenails. They just come right off.
Shoot.
But
I hate to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, Kari.
It's funny.
It's not funny.
Well, the thing is, running is bad for your knees.
Doesn't sound funny at all.
They keep saying it's bad for your knees. And
what's funny though? I don't know.
Another reason I'm not going to be running, my knees.
Well, also, Kari, I'm a few decades older than you.
Well, no, I did a 35K, so 22 miles in the woods a couple months ago, and it was crazy terrain. and I got to the turnaround point for the 12-mile run, and I was running with this guy, and he was looking good. I mean, he was definitely older, but I thought maybe he was 60. Okay. So, I'm like running with this guy, and we get to the turnaround point, and I'm like, okay, are you going to go ahead with me? You're going to do the 35K? And he's like, no, I think I'm just going to turn around and do the 12-mile. He said, but I am 80, so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh,
And my
Lord.
jaw
God bless him.
dropped.
Okay.
This guy's legs were phenomenal. And
80.
he was moving along great. So yeah, at 80. So I think, it all depends, everybody's like biomechanics are different, and everybody's, like bone density and all those things are different. Like, I just feel like motion is lotion, and I think, for everybody that looks different. I don't think everybody needs to go out there and run 30 miles or do anything crazy like that. But
Can I
for
interrupt you a
me,
second?
yeah, go ahead, Al.
Okay, what about that Korean guy who was he went on, it was like a viral video on TV, you probably saw it. He's smoking, this Korean guy, and running like the marathon.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I haven't seen
That was
that.
on
No, I'll
like
have
a
to check
month
that
ago.
out.
That was
I'll have
on
to
a
check
month
that
ago.
out.
Yeah, Google it. Korean guy smoking while he's running the marathon, smoking, and it's like his second or third one. You're talking
That's
about
wild.
35K. I
Yeah.
might be able to do I mean, I'm impressed by Greg doing 5K. That's good.
I could not do a 5K running today, but I do
You
walk
could.
every day.
I
make
bet
that,
you could do one.
I
if
make
you
that
push
just
yourself.
part of my ritual. You get up in the morning, you take care of the cats, and then you go for a walk. Just because that'll keep you, at least
Yeah,
you, like you said,
if you're like me, you
keep your
smoke 5
limbs moving
cigars on the
and
way.
keep them going. But I don't know if I'd want to run every morning. I like the pace of a good brisk walk rather than a run.
Well, I didn't start off running 50 miles. I mean, I ran track in high school, but I wasn't very good. I did a bunch of different sports. I just kind of did a little bit of everything. And so I didn't really get into running until I guess it was right around when I turned 30. And I was in okay shape, but I was not in running shape, and I couldn't run a quarter of a mile. So I did much like what you did, Greg. I started off, I said, well, I'm going to run a minute. I'm going to walk 4 minutes. I'm going to run a minute, and then tomorrow I'm going to run 2 minutes and walk 4 minutes and keep going like that. So, it gets addicting. Bad as Rad said, what motivated you to love running? To set a goal and to achieve it. And, the runner's high is a real thing. It is a real thing, and you don't get it every time you go running, but there are some times when you go running that you just get this euphoric, sort of feeling, and the running feels easy. Now, I will tell you, you cannot predict what the running is going to feel like, because some days I get out there and I go for a run and my legs feel heavy, and I can't get my breathing, right. And it sucks. I'm not going to lie. It sucks. But, I like to do something hard every day. I feel like we're too comfortable. We have, generally, we have all the food we could want. We have all these conveniences, and we never really
Indoor plumbing.
Yeah, we never really get to do the hard things very often. And there's a great sense of accomplishment when you are in pain and it hurts and it's raining and whatever, and you just suck it up and you just push through it.
Kari,
there's something
I
to
don't
be
want
said for that.
I don't want to forget about this because so I'll mention it. Running for you is almost spiritual.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual thing, kind of.
100%. Yeah. I would say I have found myself more through doing hard things than anything else in my life.
That's good. I know when I I used to go like sometimes when I walk in the morning, it's usually half hour, 45 minutes. A couple of days a week, a couple of days a week, I try to make sure I do at least an hour. The walking paths here are not as good as I had down when I lived near outside of Seattle, because they just have this massive walking path that goes for like 20 miles, or longer. And I used to go out, and sometimes I say, I'm going to walk from this town to that town, which usually took a little over an hour. But then I had to go back. So I did like a 2-hour. And like you said, when you say you've done something big, when you do something like that, at least for me, like a 2-hour walk, you really feel it at the end. It's like, wow, I was just walking for 2 hours.
And Greg, I like what you did there. You're walking to this other town. You have no option. You left yourself no option but to walk back, right?
Right.
So, you have to do the hard thing because you put yourself out there. So, yeah, I love that.
It's always easier walking back or coming back. You go on a trip or like, I'm going to go from point A to point B. Okay. I do that, and then you go back. It's easier going back, in my humble experience.
Well, I can tell you, Alan, when I did the walk back always felt shorter.
Yeah.
Even though you're covering the same distance, and you're not necessarily walking faster, or maybe you are walking faster, but after a while, like you said, there's this walking zone where you just keep on going. And
well, they say the rain's going to quit. It's been raining 7 days in a row here in Portland, and it's not unusual. But when the rain does quit, I'm going to go to Washington Park, and I'm not going to run. I'm not going to run, but I'm going to walk. And Washington Park is where the Rose thing is, Greg.
Oh, that's the park we visited when I came down.
Yeah, it's a huge park in Portland. So the Arboretum, or am I pronouncing that right? The
Arboretum?
Yeah, with a bunch of redwoods. It's beautiful up here to run and walk in Portland.
Oh, so Joseph has a question, Kari. How long was your loop trail? How many laps for 50 km?
Yeah.
We had to do 8 laps for the 50K. So yeah, it was eight laps. And I will say the group that puts that event together, and they do a lot of ultra events here in Virginia, they are very squared away. I mean, they have all the good, food and stuff that you need, and really good volunteers. But yeah, he definitely, the guy who's in charge of that, he definitely likes to put on a challenging event. So yeah, he doesn't make it easy, that's for sure.
Well, that's cool. I mean, 50K is just amazing, I think.
I'm in awe because some people there, you guys are talking me up. I appreciate all the love. You guys are great. But there were some people there who did 100 miles. And yeah, they did 100 miles. There were people out there doing a 24-hour ultra marathon, and some people doing a 36-hour. And, I can just tell you, it's a whole different feel at an ultra marathon, because literally, I was in so much pain those last few miles. I was walking, and I was just, probably going at a snail's pace. And there were people there like, yeah, you're doing a good pace, great job. You know what I mean? And it's like, because they know a couple of those people cheer me on. They were doing the 24-hour one, so they know exactly what you're feeling like, and they know that like just moving at that point is a win. Like you feel like, at this point I'm committed, I got 3 more miles left. Like I'm finishing this thing, and it's not pretty. It doesn't look pretty. It's definitely, I love the half marathon events because, you can kind of recover a little bit easier from those, but yeah, if you really want to
Yeah.
get into something, you know, start doing something
Do
over
you,
marathon
do you know
distance, and
about
it's
the
crazy.
24 hours
That's
of the Grand Canyon? There's people who hike the Grand Canyon in 24 hours, and you get a T-shirt when you're done. I've done it. You start from the south rim and go to the north. You hike the Grand Canyon. Down by the Colorado River, they have a steakhouse, and that's where you get your T-shirt at. I chose the pink one,
Nice.
so I did
Good
that.
job, Alan.
I did
That's
that.
awesome. That's awesome.
that is cool.
Hell yeah!
You deserve that
24 hours
T-shirt.
of Grand Canyon. Yeah,
I hope you have that T-shirt still, Alan. You
I
deserve that
don't,
one.
unfortunately.
Oh
No, I'm
man.
sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I would have kept
I
it.
know. I have so many T-shirts, but
So here's Brian Carey.
I have the memory.
I ain't running, but I admire your dedication.
Thank
Moleskin
you.
for blisters.
Yeah, you know
2
what's
words.
funny? I've got a couple things for blisters, and normally I don't get blisters that much. But I got a few like at weird spots this time, like on the heel of my foot, like on the underside.
Oh,
And some of that is due to the wet. Like I've been doing a couple races where the one I did in January, I was just below my knees in a river crossing in water. I
damn.
mean, so I was completely drenched. So like I couldn't change socks because I had to cross the same river coming back. But that one was pretty gnarly. This one girl, we had to climb over like down trees and stuff. It wasn't a well-maintained trail. I think a couple people might have got lost actually. But
Yeah,
this one girl,
it's funny.
she had blood running down the front of her legs because we
Oh
had to climb
God.
over some trees and there were still some branches that had broken off and stuff. And so when people came over them, they got tore up. So yeah, some
That's
people
hardcore.
really, really hardcore.
Hmm.
Yeah, wet socks are the worst, but
Oh yeah.
and I'd taken Joseph. I'd taken a couple of clean pair to that particular race because he had said you will get wet, and I was like, well, yeah. What does that really mean, though? Like you will get wet. Like is it like
You're gonna get
one
blisters.
little
Is what that
splash in a
means.
stream? That it was literally almost to my knees, and it was I mean I had to walk across it probably 10 or 15 feet. So it wasn't like one jump over a creek. It was a river crossing. And so yeah, it was not good for trying to keep the feet dry.
That sounds worse than when I was like in Washington State. I would often take walk, and it would rain because it rains out there a lot, and I know I got a little wet.
It's raining now.
It's just like just drizzle, and you bring a little waterproof slicker, and you're good.
Yeah.
I'm not running across rivers.
Yeah, it's running in the rain is not bad though, because your feet get wet, but it's not like terrible. I don't mind running in the rain as long as I have a baseball cap. I'm good. So I can
as long as
see.
your shoes are mostly waterproof.
Yeah.
And I was walking on a bike path, so it's not like you're splashing through lots of stuff. Black toenails.
Oh Lord.
I'm just
My
catching
dad
up
got
on
black. Oh,
I'm just
my
catching
dad
up
got
on our Joseph Francis Burton. No, most
Yes.
common misconception about running is ruined knees.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear that a lot. And I think he's older than me. He might be. I'm pushing 60.
It's all good. Look, we're all as young as we're ever gonna be.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Here's MJ
I'm 15. I'm 15 going on 45.
Running isn't bad for your knees. Bad running form is bad for your knees.
Gosh, bad running form is bad for everything. I mean, it's like a whole chain of just injuries. That's
Walking
something else
is
too.
blind speed.
If you and getting older too, people talk about getting older. Weight training is just amazing for longevity, but also for your running form and for preventing injuries. After I started weight training pretty seriously, I didn't have running injuries anymore. You know, I used to have like I had plantar fasciitis. I had you know, a couple shin splints on, you know, one leg, and it, you know, a lot of it was due to just being weak, and you know.
Oh. Well, I'm holding up by Adidas, but I live in Nike country. You know, Nike's from Portland, and so I know a few runners.
I'm a Brooks gal.
Bad is saying I should be Forrest Gump.
Do you know that sneaker, Kari, called God, what's it called? BOC, I think. It's from up here. I had runner friends when I worked at Smith T. I haven't worked there in a couple of years, but they were young kids, runners, and they, you know, spending $200 on their shoes, you know.
Yeah.
So you need the right shoes.
Oh yeah, shoes are huge. It's wild. I coach at the school I teach at, and you know, we'll see kids coming in to run, and you know, flat bottom Vans or whatever, and I'm like, no,
Vans, yeah.
like we can't have this. Like you have to have proper running gear, you know, and you find a shoe you like, you kind of stick with it. I hate when the manufacturers, though, they'll change something, you know, in the new update, and it's just not the same. You know, it's just not the same.
Right. That's the same everywhere, whether shoes or apps, or you know, they update my app. You know, I hate it.
Yeah, messes it up.
Yeah. Do you use like a gel shoe, or what do you use?
I use the Brooks right now. I'm with the Brooks Ghost 14, and they're kind of a neutral shoe. They don't have too much of a dip in it, and it's a good bit of cushion, but it's not as cushioned as some of the newer shoes like the Hokas. I mean, the Hokas are, I guess, kind of the new it shoe. And they have a ton of cushion. I don't need that much cushion. But yeah, the Brooks are good. They have a really comfortable toe box for me. And
good.
the uppers on them are good enough where they keep my foot secure. So, you know, some of the running shoes, they're a little too flimsy, like the upper portion of it. The fabric portion is a little too flimsy for me. Like, I don't like my feet to feel like they're moving around a ton. So the Brooks are really comfortable, because I do have I have arthritis in one of my toe joints. One of my toe joints, I do.
You said when I did my 5K, I had a Hoka shoe, but afterwards I went down to more of the walking shoe.
Yeah.
Like here's MJ saying, we don't age because we get old. We age because we stop moving. Walk, run, and that's why I always walk every morning. And on the mornings I don't walk, I usually feel cranky the rest of the day, just because.
Yeah.
You're cranky all the day, Greg.
I get especially cranky if I don't get my walk in the morning. He was smoking. Joseph was smoking while running is a good way for getting an early heart attack. Ooh, what happened to Alan?
You know, coincidence, we started having these connectivity issues when we started talking about JFK. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't run here. There you go.
Yeah, my battery's dying. So.
All right. So if your battery's dying, we're at 1 hour and 45 minutes. Kari, do you need to go
we already?
You can talk a bit more?
I can talk a bit more.
All right. I'm just going through, see if there's some interesting stuff in the comments.
Are you saying we talked for 2 hours already?
Not yet. But we'll get there.
Crazy.
Here's Alexis was saying, You get up in the morning, look at the clock, curse, and put the pillow over your head and go back to bed. Well, I have this problem in my house.
That's when I take my medication.
If I tried to do that, I would get complaints.
From your cats.
From your cats?
You've seen
Yeah.
two of the complainers come by here. They would say,
Yeah.
excuse me,
Get up.
feed me.
Great
I want
alarm
breakfast."
clock.
First mile is always the
Oh.
hardest.
Yes, I agree with that. People ask me that all the time. You know, what's the hardest part? The hardest mile for me is the first mile. And honestly, I don't really get into a groove probably until after like 2 miles, 2 or 3 miles. So, you know, that first mile, and it might just be a me thing, but maybe not if Joseph is backing me up here. I don't feel like I have my breathing kind of under control or in a good rhythm. Like I haven't really found my rhythm yet. So the first mile, if you can get beyond that, you're golden. Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna equate that to writing. You know, when you write, in my experience, I write a lot of bullshit in the beginning, and then then you reread it. Oh, I should have began here. Yeah, all this fluffery is I should have began here. So it takes you a while to warm up with running, with writing, with art. You know, I can't wake up in the morning and start drawing. I have to practice.
Yeah. Consistency is key. I'll agree with that.
Running can be a motivation addiction, Kari. I think it feels
And it can
good
be
as
spiritual too. Running's spiritual.
Absolutely.
I can think of a million reasons not to run, especially when I'm tired and the weather sucks. I have to go anyway. Well, that's what I feel like when I do my walks in the morning. If it's raining, I just go to our lodge and they have an indoor track and I just do loops
Yeah.
on the indoor track.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Greg's got a beautiful community and he doesn't take advantage of it, in my humble opinion. If I was Greg, I'd be playing pickleball. I'd be down in the billiards room. I'd be playing pool. I'd be at the pool, you know.
Well, you know,
He moved there. He's trying to get warmed up to it.
yeah, I tried pickleball. It's not for me. Have you heard
Man,
of
I would
pickleball,
love
Kari?
some pickleball.
I have actually. Our PE teacher does it with our kids. Yeah.
It's the new hot sport.
Yeah.
I would kick your ass in pickleball, Greg.
Alan, everyone can kick my ass at pickleball. I don't play it. I tried it and I moved on to different
That's
things.
all right. Well, maybe you should try again. You have to be a good husband.
I'm going to have to say that I don't like game type of events where you're playing on a score with other people. It's like I can do my walking. Maybe if I tried, I could do running, but I don't want to do any sort of like competitive scoring type of games. It's just not in my psyche to do that kind of thing.
Man, Greg, you and Chris could rule. You could rule that apartment. You could rule that complex.
Nah.
You and Chris, if you practiced, Greg, you could rule that place of pickleball.
Well, here's
Like, hell
the
yeah.
thing. My wife is doing pickleball for a little over a year now, and she said she's getting to be a solid intermediate player.
Yeah.
And in a few years, she'll be a solid advanced, but she's never going to be top. She knows she's never going to be the best player that we have out here. And I guess she could be if she wanted to really strive for it, but why work that hard to be the best and you're just enjoying yourself? But what Al is going, religion is the path you follow with confidence, devotion, and commitment. I would do more XFit except for my heavy travel schedule, and that's my arthritic wrists. It can be anything, and it tends not to be. Hey, Kari, that's some great motivation. We can definitely use that mindset in everyday life goals. We're making Brian
Kari
tired.
is a big motivator. You're the motivation of BookTube, Kari.
Oh, that's so sweet, Alan.
One of
Thank
them.
you.
One of
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Joseph, I'm a frequent business traveler. I love to find new places to jog in each place I visit.
It's a great way to see different places. I've actually been doing that with a friend of mine. I'm going to every East Coast state and doing a half marathon in each state, and it's a really cool way to see different places and
Heck yeah.
meet interesting people. And I've been able to run through some national parks and parts of cities that I probably would not see otherwise. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. All right. Nietzsche, the only valuable ideas come when walking.
That's got to be coming from Al the Nietzsche comment.
You know it is. Joseph, yes, I jog when I'm whipped, turn around and see how far I have to go back and mumble, well, what have I done?
You burn the boats. You burn the boats, and then you have no choice.
Yeah, running was not a thing in the 19th century. Yeah, I don't know when running became a thing.
I don't really know. That would be interesting to read a book about kind of the history of running. But it's funny. I always tease because the other running coach I know, we talk about, shoes, and people always ask you advice on shoes and stuff, and I just laugh to myself because I'm like, when you look at the pictures of like, the marathon from the 1920s or something, they're wearing like, hardly anything for shoes.
Bloomers.
compared to
we're like bloomers, and
compared to what we wear now. Like we have these really sophisticated shoes, and I'm thinking, well, they didn't have this 100 years ago and they made it. So if I don't get exactly the right shoe, I think I'll be okay, as long as it's
the Greeks ran barefoot, if I remember my history right. The Greeks ran barefoot.
Yeah, well, here's the thing too. It's like you look at some places around the world where you have these people who still live kind of a nomadic lifestyle, and they go barefoot. Their feet look so different from our feet. Like our feet have been constrained in shoes, and their feet are like very muscular, and their toes are kind of like spread out like your hand almost. And they don't seem to have a lot of these foot issues that we have. Now, I'm not advocating for barefoot running. I know that was like a thing, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something, because here's the thing, our feet have not been trained for that. So like if you went from wearing like what we normally wear to going out and trying to do some barefoot running, I think you're going to incur a ton of injuries. It's not going to be good. But I think like if we had grown up like that, if we had lived like that, our feet would probably look a lot different.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Pat, I felt a bit of depression last week. Here I used the walking motivation plus eating keto to get myself out of it. I was like, okay, I know depression is what depression is. Now it's gone. Well,
glad you're
we can talk about eating. Let's talk about eating. Like I know Kari's a good eater. Are you on any kind of diet, Kari, or like keto, or?
No, I'm.
What do you do?
To each his own. For sure. I think that different people's bodies are suited for different things. So there's definitely not a one size fits all diet. And I do a bit of nutrition coaching. I'm very leery of any sort of diet that cuts out like whole food groups. Yeah, I'm very leery of that. Especially being someone who, I look at food more as fuel
Right.
And food is not good or bad. It's there's more nutritious food and there's less nutritious food. And I try to just focus on putting stuff in my body that is very nutrient dense, and of course, like nobody's diet is perfect, and I think people get too hung up on that. I think you do the best you can with what you have to work with because, food is expensive right now. And, trying to eat well should be a priority, but I understand some people have limitations. But yeah, I just try to eat a lot of good lean meat, a lot of good protein, fruits and vegetables, a lot of whole grains.
Yeah.
I'm
Me too.
I don't limit myself, and I don't actually count calories or macros.
Hi, Courtney.
So,
Not Courtney. MJ.
Now this brings me on my next question for Kari. What is your go-to treat? What is your treat, like cheat day?
oh man, we kind of had this conversation already, Alan. I love Mexican food. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Like I've literally been to. There's a Mexican restaurant that there's several where I live, but
Well, I'm talking about an ice cream sandwich or something.
Oh, so like a treat or something after run. I get a little crazy with my peanut butter. Okay. I get like gourmet sort of peanut butter. Like I've had a pistachio nut butter. I've had there's one that's like an espresso peanut butter. It's got little like nibs of like espresso in it. There's one that's a coconut almond butter. Oh gosh, it is so good. And nutrition advice here, peanut butter is not the greatest source of protein. Okay. It is a great source of fat with some protein in it. Okay. And I am so disappointed when I look at the serving size for any peanut butter because it's just two little tablespoons. That's it. But it's funny. And Jif, I used to eat Jif all the time too. I try now. Obviously I try to eat cleaner. So I do try to find like nut butters that are just like the nuts, and that's it. That not all the extra stuff, because I have tried to be a little more conscious of what I put in my body because it does make a difference. I do feel it when I train. Like I feel different when I eat poorly. I train poorly. And of course, we all have our days, but trying to limit crazy ingredients and, stuff that's frozen. Obviously, like frozen vegetables and all that are great, but like frozen prepackaged sort of things. So,
I don't have a good diet. Like peanut butter would be Reese's.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Reese's. It's funny. I can't buy Reese's anymore, Greg, because I used to buy them just around the holidays because the trees and the eggs and the pumpkins, they're so much better than the regular Reese cups. They're so much better. They're like softer. I think it's because they're more fresh, like they're done just for the holiday.
Right.
But if I bought a package of those,
too,
yeah, I'd eat the whole thing. So I'm like, I just can't even buy them.
I can save a little bit. I can save my Reese's a little bit. I freeze them, and I can save them. But I'm a Reese's guy too.
Yeah.
I like the Reese's minis. I buy a big bag and then lasts me maybe a week or two.
I like the pretzels. Have you had the new one? They have a pretzel on top. It's a big cup.
I haven't had that one.
Pretzel one.
Yeah, it's coming for you. Everything starts in Oregon and California. It's coming your way.
You know what's funny though? Sugar, and I've noticed this. It's like a drug. I mean, once I start with it, I'm like, okay, then I have a taste for it, then I just want more and more sugar. So it's I try to just get my sugar from fruit now, other than like occasional stuff.
That's better for you. But
And when I go out, I do get dessert when I go out because, and I find that's a bit of a better idea for me because when you go out and you get a dessert, it's kind of like it's a special treat and it's not, you don't have the box at home. So it's not like you can go
Right.
eat two more.
So if you go out to Mexican, do you like sopapillas for dessert?
I don't know that I've ever had those. I don't know that I've ever had
They're
those.
little candies that they sell
Yeah.
at the.
What a sopapilla?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever had
They're
them.
really
I don't.
they're decadent, but they're I like them.
It's funny when I go to Mexican, I don't really get dessert. Like when I go there, I'm like all about the salty stuff
Yeah.
and the salsa and the chips and the I love tacos al pastor. That's my
Woo.
favorite. And
Have you ever had like the refried ice cream where they'll dump ice cream like a chimichanga?
yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, yeah. No, it's always a balance. And here's the thing too. It's like some people use exercise as like a punishment for something they've eaten. And
True.
that's not a good way to look at things. Like just move on. If you have a bad day and you eat a bunch, that's one day out of 365 days. When
You have to have
look
a
at the
treat day. You have
yeah,
to
when
have.
you look at the percentage, it's really not that bad. So, I feel like some people try to go to extremes, and that's never good.
No.
And Joseph, on an ultra, so what I bring to eat, I have these sour gummy worms. They're Haribo twin snakes. They're sweet and sour. I bring those for the ultra, and
Okay.
I bring honey stingers for the ultra. They're these little waffles that you have to eat.
Now we're talking.
Because when you're running, running nutrition, like sports nutrition, is not regular nutrition. Because when you're doing something like that, that's really taxing on your body, you don't want something that's got, a lot of fiber in it. You don't want something that's going to take up a lot of energy to digest. So you want like sugary, quick stuff when you're doing.
Okay. Can I interrupt you, Kari?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you're saying when you run, you eat gummies?
Yeah, if I'm running like I don't take anything to eat unless I'm running like over 10 miles. But once I hit about mile 7 or 8, I have to eat a little something to get a little bit more glucose. I need some glycogen to run. So that's what is giving you your energy. So I do that.
Wow,
and I
good.
also like is it oh gosh. Is it dates?
Dates or
dates
I like
with
dates too.
With peanut butter. That's a good one. And stuff like that. So you can carry some like I guess healthier sort of options. But I'm lucky. I've never had any issues. Like a lot of runners have issues with digestive problems when they're running, and I've just been very fortunate that it's not been an issue.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thanks.
Oh,
So if you're ever hiking, stick some gummy worms or something in your bag. Give you a little extra energy.
Good idea. Very good idea. And I eat peanut butter like every day. I do. Sometimes I just like it, and it's good for you. And yeah.
All right, that's it. I'm trying to get through the last of our comments. We're at 2 hours, so yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Kari, I want to thank you for coming on our show, sitting around for 2 hours and chatting with us, and we covered some unusual topics here tonight. That's good.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me and for being a good sport, listening to my ramblings about JFK and
that's why we're here. Yeah, we love that.
I get a little amped up.
Well, it's okay to have passion about your subjects.
Yeah.
So much information. You turn me on to a few new books, and what more can you ask for from a guest?
That's right. Okay. Well, we're down to one viewer, so let's
All
call
right.
it a night. Goodbye,
All right,
everyone.
guys. Bye. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.